Sorry for that delay. This is our design section. So today we're going to be talking about images and layouts. Just as like a pre-warning, the presentation is a bit long, so I will give you like a mini break in between. Yeah, okay. So let's get started. So first we're going to be talking about images. So let's just talk about these websites as like a little bit of a warm-up. Yeah. Wow. It's a beautiful website. So really drink in the design. So does anyone want to tell me some like aspects that they notice about this website? Don't be shy. Yeah, the text color and the background color are really similar. They're both like yellow, like bright yellow. Any other comments? I will take one more person. Yeah. Yeah, the pattern's insane. It's like heart eye emojis or just emojis in the back. So yeah, like this is like a purposely like pretty bad website. Like the typography is also kind of like tacky. And like the graphics and like well, you can't really tell on this website or like on this like screenshot, but like there's also like gifs that are also kind of like funny looking. But it's like quirky and like has a lot of personality. But it's like not the vibe that we want to promote, I guess, because it's like really hard on the eyes. Yeah. So here's like a better version. Any distinct things that you guys like can see that are like different? Yeah.
Just white space.
Yeah, white space. White space is really nice on the eyes. Maybe like two more things. Yeah.
The background behind the text isn't like patterns, so it's easier to read.
Yeah, the background is not patterned, so it's easier to read the text. There's also like a nice like image, and like yeah, like it says like want noodles and like has like food and like a cool like graphic of like a hand reaching through a phone to like be like, oh, like you can order through a mobile app. Yeah, and then also like talking about fonts again, like it's a very modern font. We have a sans serif text, which goes well with like the modern vibe of the website. And like even though we're still using like a bright yellow, it's not like a like a green like soured yellow. It's like a nice like vibrant yellow. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about image use. So one of the first ways that we can be using images is to like promote products and like highlight our products. And so it's pretty straightforward, but if you like you can just like focus on a product with like a little space allocated for it and then have space on the left or like on top to like kind of describe what is in our image. And we'll talk more about like layout later. Next, we have like websites that display shows and like catalogs. And so like this just gives you like a broader like view of like all the things that you can possibly like choose from. And so like Netflix is like this, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. There's also like thumbnailing. So these are like made like pretty popular by Pinterest, more specifically like the masonry thumbnails that we see on the left, where it's like not necessarily like completely aligned and like the top edges aren't always aligned with the other top edges of images. And so this is like based more on like vertical space, and we reduce like unnecessary gaps. For example, like on I think there's like for example, like if we had like images that are aligned but they don't necessarily have the exact same heights, then we might have like white gaps in between that aren't necessarily like very aesthetic on the eye. So having like the masonry is really nice for like keeping our margins very even and equal. So the pros of having a masonry thumbnail is that you can like show entire items and like also support items of variable sizes and like in terms of width and height. But then we also have like the grid layout, which is on like the right and it's like very like common in like Instagram, where like images are like automatically cropped into a specific shape. Usually like with Instagram, we have like a square. And Yeah, since it's like cropped into a shape, we don't necessarily have to worry about like the differing heights if we're aligning our shapes. And so it makes our layouts nice and clean and very aligned. So here's some other thumbnail styles. So like the one on the right is what I was talking about, where like we have where we have like aligned images, but it's not necessarily like the same height. So it like kind of creates like interesting or like not so ideal spacing between our images. On the left, we have justified images, which are margined evenly, and they don't really like line up from like row to row, but they do line up edge to edge in terms of height. So let's move on to icons. So icons are also technically images, but they aren't like necessarily photography. And they help us like emphasize like specific features of our website, but they shouldn't be distracting from our content. They should instead be adding to it and like emphasizing proper highlights. Yeah. So icons help us make information less intimidating. They can often like break up words for us because some images or icons can easily be like distinguished as like a function. For example, like if I just had like a house instead of like the word home, you would know that that is the home page button. So when we're using icons, consider like what you're trying to express with that icon. For example, like if like instead of a home or instead of like a house as my home icon, if I had like an apple, like if I wasn't branded as Apple, like that would probably be a little confusing. So like try to like be very purposeful about like what your icons are and like if they're tying into your theme. And so that goes back into like our color lecture from last week, where like if you have a theme color for your website, then it's good to use that for your icons. And your icon should also be unifying your ideas in terms of content and personality as a whole. So here's an example of icons in a website. It's very warm, very homey. It's like very clean as well. So it's like nice to like look at. And the animations are nice as well. So humans like tend to respond to and process visual data better than any types of other data. And so that's why images and colors are so important to the production of your website. So let's get a little bit more technical about photos. So we have two main types of photos. We have JPEGs and PNGs. So JPEGs help us compress large images and delete like unnecessary information and make them easily shareable, which makes them easily shareable. And so this is usually used in a situation where it's important to have a small file so that your page can load faster and that they can like develop as soon as you refresh a page. PNGs, on the other hand, support transparency. So it's like nice if you have like an image without a background and you just like slap it onto like a website that has like a navy background, for example, you won't have that white background on it. Whereas with JPEGs, you would still have that white background and it would like stand out. So PNG 8 used to be like GIFs or GIFs, however you want to pronounce it. And it only supported 256 colors, but now PNGs can support 16 million, which is pretty cool. And it's still encapsulated inside of like a rectangle shape. So it's not necessarily just like a free like shape. You still have like a border around it as though it did have a background, but it doesn't necessarily have one. Yeah. So here's an example of a JPEG quality. So like as you continuously save a JPEG, the quality gets worse and worse because JPEG is made to like kind of like decrease the amount of like unnecessary things that are in it. So you'll see that like between the first save and the 50th save is like distinctly like a lot blurry, but it still has the same shapes and the same colors in the same areas. So like technically it's still the same image. It's just that the resolution is a lot worse and that is unideal. So here's a quick little comic about PNG versus JPEG. So you'll see that like on the left, it's like nice and clear and like the images are like very like, or like the text is very clear. And then on the right, it just progressively gets a lot blurry, which is, yeah, to drive the point home. Okay, let's move on to animation. Oh, so cute. Okay. So GIFs or GIFs, again, however you want to pronounce it. It stands for graphics interchange. Blah. interchange format, and it supports animations, and basically they're very lightweight images or like animations, and so like they can produce videos, but like it's not like the highest quality. Yeah, but it's like good for like if you want to like have an animated image, or if you just want to have a cute Shiva. Yeah, okay. So here's some like cool examples of gifts. So this website in particular, I can get to it. Okay. If I can get to the homepage, hold on. Yeah. Okay, here. So you'll see like this website is pretty cool. It has like little like nudgy like aspects to it where you can like push around the margins. I think the first time that you load this page, if I can get to it again, it develops its logo, and then there's like a little wave over, and then all the animations pop up. And so it's like pretty sick that you can do that with like animations and GIFs. And then if you guys want, you guys can just like go through this website on your own time to like see all like the different animations and ways that you can use them in your websites. Here's another example. Oh, 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 it's because I'm not on the slide. That is awkward. Okay, here's another example of animations in websites. And so this is like a timer, I think, or like an alarm that is just like developing as the night progresses or as time progresses. And so it's like, again, a very like aesthetic way to like incorporate animations and like GIFs into your websites. So moving on, let's talk about SVGs, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphic, which is like creating an icon or like a graphic that as you like size it up or size it down, its quality does not diminish. So for example, in Figma, when you're using like a pen tool, you're creating a vector-based image. And so that image, if you like make it really small, if you like expand it again, it's still going to be at the same quality because we're using vectors to like create that image. And so these graphics are like extremely lightweight and they're easy to customize with a code editor, or if you're using like Adobe Illustrator, there's tools that help you just like edit those with like pen tools or select tools, and it's really fun to work with. It's also one of the ways that you can create animations that are really clean, like in the past two examples. And in Adobe Illustrator, you can also export these graphics like directly, and then again, it's going to preserve that quality. So here is an example of an SVG. So like on the right, we have the code, and on the left, we have the actual graphic itself. When you have Adobe Illustrator, Illustrator is kind of like an interpreter for the code on the right. And so like when you're like creating like images in Illustrator, it's creating code in the back end, but on the front, you get to see the graphic that you're creating. And then when you export it, it's exporting that image. Yeah. So here is a student example, actually, and they made these graphics themselves. So it means that you guys can make these too. And then, yeah, if you guys are interested in making them, like, feel free to talk to me. I can help you guys set up an Adobe account because Berkeley has it for free for their students. So yeah, if you want to experiment with that, I also have some tools that help you make pen drawings. Yeah, okay. So more on image use. When we're using images, you want to always be very like distinct and like clear about what your purpose is with an image. You don't just want to put in an image because it looks nice. There has to be some reason as to why it's there. So when you're using an image, ask yourself like, why am I using it? How is it like tying into my website, and what specifically in that image is like helping it tie in and promote my website? Yeah. So use visuals that are like honestly like predictable, because like then you aren't like subverting expectation and people are like confused about like what the purpose of your website is. So yeah, use predictable images, use images that have purpose and meaning. So again, here's like an example. So our headline says, take the quiz, take your vitamins. And so we have hands that are holding vitamins, and there's the get started right at like the tip of the fingers. And so that's nice, so that it's very clear about like what the purpose of the image is, which is to take your vitamins. And so you can also take the quiz at that button as well. So again, very predictable, very understandable, also a very clean image. So here's like a 2010 meme of a minion. And so we really want to avoid poor quality images. It makes sense. Sometimes you like might like be on Pinterest and you find this like really cool photo, but like the image quality is like actually horrible. So like please don't use that, because like when we're scaling up onto like a bigger website, or when we're scaling our window size, that image is just going to be like blown up, and then the quality is going to get worse and worse, and then bad website. Yeah. So like try to choose photos that have good quality. Stock photos, sometimes they're really funny. But most of the time you don't want to be using stock photos because they're so recognizable as stock photos. And I feel like it kind of like degrades the quality of your website, because it's like, oh, like they're just taking photos off of like Google and choosing the first option that shows up, you know? So while they do save you a lot of time in like finding photos, if you're actually like producing a website for your own, like, for example, like photography portfolio, or like restaurant website or something like that, don't use photos that just like have like a bunch of people like smiling at you like that, because yeah, they're very recognizable as stock photos. They like have their own branded name as a stock photo, or like not branded, but like they are called stock photos for a reason. Yeah, so some websites, for example, like Chegg, tend to use like photos of people specifically, because then you have like a human to human connection of like, oh, a human is using this website, so I'll use this website. And it's like kind of like the reassurance that like another person trusts this website. So like that's kind of like the psychology behind photos, or like people in photos and the usage of them. Here's Course Hero. So like, again, it's kind of like the vibe that they want to give is like very academic, very like community vibe. And that's how you kind of like buy into like the trust of this website. And so this is like more so using graphics than people or like images, but it's still like giving like the like community, school, like energy. Yeah. Here's Slater. So like Slater is like completely like subverting like the school. And instead is going like a very like different route, and like being like very like funky and like very quirky in their design. But you can like see like in their graphics that they're like not like sticking to the standard of like an education website. So like previously with Course Hero and with Chegg is like very clean, very like modern. And then with Slater it's more so like teenage, yeah, like hip, you know? And so it's like sets them apart from other websites. So when like kind of like diverging a little bit, when we have like text overlay, so some of you guys that have like been checking in for your designs have been using like text on top of images. And so make sure that when you're doing this, that you're making sure that like the text color that you're using is like standing out from the image behind it. For example, if you can even see the middle text that says, "Can you see me?" That is bad usage of color in your typography and combining it with images, because of how difficult it is to see. I mean, it's kind of cool if you wanted to like put in an Easter egg that's like, "Can you see me?" in like the white space of an image, but it shouldn't be conveying any information there. So you'll see that in accessibility and in like the text on the bottom, that is a lot clearer to see. Yeah, so we want that. So here's an image that has like text overlay that's like pretty hard to see. The before is like on top of like the white space of that mountain and like the water. And so if we like add in like a darker overlay, then we can make that like more visible. And so usually we can use like Photoshop or CSS to like darken it. You can even like in Figma, when we're making our mockups, you can just like create a rectangle and like over it in like a mask or something, and then like put like 60% opacity, and it's going to darken your image. Also, there's like no pressure to like always like have your like text centered like here. Usually like when we're putting like text onto like images or on top of things, we can also center them to the left. And yeah, like positioning also is like used to like improve your general readability, especially like in like English using country, I guess, or like school. We read left to right. And so like having like text on the left is very intuitive for us to just read. So let's move on to layouts. Oh, wait, okay. 10-second break, stand up. Okay, amazing. Layouts. Okay, so here are some examples of layouts. So these are like called F layouts. And so you'll see that most of the content is within the like F of the frame. So we stay to the left and the top and middle. And then most like the information is condensed in those areas. So most websites often do this. For example, like you might be like browsing like Reddit or like Facebook slash Meta, I guess. And like all their content is like left aligned. And so like we just learned with David Flexbox. And so like that will help you like create that in your own websites. It's like also very natural. Again, like it's like because we read left to right, it's pretty like intuitive to be looking at a website from left to right instead of like, I don't know, if you're reading right to left. So usually like when we're looking at websites, we look at the top and then the upper left and then left sides and then move to the right. And that is a very common way to like design your layout for a website. The pros are that it's like very natural and very comfortable to like the brain. You don't have to do a lot of thinking, you just do. The cons are that like you have to like say the important stuff right away. So like at the top, we have the nav bar where like usually you would have like a nav bar or like some like important information there. And so like that is often the first thing that a user reads. And then as you like progress from left to right, like that should be like the importance or like the hierarchy of importance of content. So here are some examples. So we on the left, we have like the head of the page. And so it's like taking up the most space. And so it's like dominant, and then we move to the right. And then I don't know about you guys, but I looked at the top of the right side before the bottom. So yeah, very intuitive, very natural. Same thing with Google Drive. So like, again, like the left side has our nav bar and then we read left to right. And then even though we have 3 folders and 4 documents, it's all left justified. So some exceptions to the F layout are that like not all websites are really styled this way. Some people like tend to branch out or they just tend to stay center justified. But yeah, like F is just like a very common way for you guys to like lay out your websites, especially if you're like just starting out and don't really like want to like adventure into like, I don't know, upside down websites or something. So like, yeah, F layouts are very helpful. This is also like a great way to like feature images on top of your navigation, especially because navigations on the side or even like the bottom are becoming more common. So yeah, it's easy to like just like implement images into your website with an F layout. Okay, so when we're creating a website, we also like to use content frames. And so content frames are just areas that are like containing your content and are like, I don't know, emphasizing the importance of them. And so these are usually like established through a centered 960 pixel container. And so for example, we have Tumblr, which is like, it creates its own container within the website. And so it has a lot of like white space, or not, it's not white, but like white space on the sides. And it has the content all justified or like all centered within that box. I think this is also common like Reddit, where it has like the different like posts made. And so like that is how like we can organize information. And then like if you think about the HTML as well, like you can like group them into divs, and then it's easier to apply your CSS. Things to keep in mind when building your website. Okay, so here is an example of just like content scrolling. Scrolling is also like one of the things that we can change and like make unique to our website using CSS. So here, this website is like scrolling down and then has like their own like unique animations. You'll see too on like the web design decal website that we also have like scrolling animations. And so if you want to learn more about those, stay tuned. But we also have an animations lecture coming up too. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you don't always like have to like follow like the rules. You don't always have to follow F layout. You don't always have to like have a nav bar at the top of your website. Everything's like genuinely like up to you. It's just that these are like the more common things that people tend to do. And so yeah, dispersing of information. So here are some image resources. Feel free to note them down if you'd like, especially when you're using images in your websites. You guys want to like give credit, especially if you didn't take them yourself. So like you could like include like a small like white text on the image that's like image courtesy of blank, so that we give credit to the proper people. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Do we have any questions? No?